Well, here's another list of some of the most worth buying AA games you need to check out. These are some of the best AA games you can buy. So let's look at the first game on our list. Hollow Knight. When people talk about games that give you an insane amount of value for your money, Hollow Knight is almost always at the top of the list, and for good reason. This game might look simple at first glance with its hand-drawn, minimalist art style and side-scrolling mechanics, but don't let that fool you. Hollow Knight packs a massive world, deep lore, and hours upon hours of content that'll have you hooked long after you've beaten the main story. It's the kind of game that feels like it just keeps giving no matter how far you dive in. You play as a tiny, mysterious knight exploring the underground kingdom of Hallownest, a dark, beautifully eerie world full of secrets. What I love about this game is how it encourages exploration. It doesn't hold your hand or tell you exactly where to go, you're left to find your own way, and that sense of discovery is one of the game's biggest strengths. You'll stumble upon hidden areas, meet strange and fascinating characters, and slowly piece together the history of the kingdom as you go. Every time you think you've seen everything, Hollow Knight throws another hidden path or boss fight your way, keeping the game feeling fresh. And speaking of boss fights, the combat in Hollow Knight is some of the most satisfying you'll find in a Metroidvania. It's tough, don't get me wrong, but it's fair. The game gives you all the tools you need to succeed, and every death feels like a learning experience rather than something to be frustrated by. The combat is fluid, responsive, and incredibly rewarding, especially when you finally take down one of the game's tougher bosses after multiple attempts. It's a true test of skill, and that makes every victory feel earned. What's even more impressive is how much content the developers packed into this game. Beyond the main story, there are tons of optional areas, bosses, and side quests to uncover. You can easily sink 40 to 50 hours into Hollow Knight if you're aiming for 100% completion, and that's without factoring in the free DLC that adds even more challenges and content to the game, and for a game that's priced like an indie title, that's just insane value. But the real hook of Hollow Knight, it's how the game makes you feel like a true adventurer. You're constantly uncovering new secrets, mastering new abilities, and pushing yourself to explore deeper into the kingdom's labyrinthine depths. It's that sense of wonder and discovery that keeps you playing long after you've beaten the main story, because in Hollow Knight, there's always something more to uncover. For a game that punches way above its weight, Hollow Knight is an absolute must-play for anyone who loves exploration, challenging combat, and getting lost in a world that feels larger than life. It's an incredible value for the price, and one of those rare games that delivers way more than you'd expect from a so-called AA title. The Long Dark. When it comes to games that offer insane playtime value, The Long Dark absolutely deserves a top spot. It's not just about how long you can play, but how deeply it sucks you into its world of brutal survival in the frozen wilderness. The game drops you into the post-apocalyptic Canadian wilderness with nothing but your wits and whatever supplies you can scavenge to stay alive. It's you versus nature, and let me tell you, nature is relentless. What sets The Long Dark apart from other survival games is how it focuses on the quiet, contemplative side of survival. There aren't zombies or mutants chasing you down. Instead, it's the cold, hunger, fatigue, and the occasional hungry wolf. The game nails that feeling of isolation. You're constantly battling the elements, searching for food, shelter, and warmth, while always being mindful of your supplies. It's tense, but in a slow burn kind of way that keeps you hooked for hours. The game's survival mode is where the playtime value really kicks in. There's no story here, just pure open-ended survival. Every time you play, it's different.
Whoa, well, slow.
You might find yourself lucky enough to stumble upon a well-stocked cabin with food and supplies, or you could end up out in the middle of nowhere with nothing but a stick and a can of sardines. The game doesn't hold your hand, and that's what makes it so addictive. Every decision matters, from how long you spend outside in the cold to whether you should risk lighting a fire or conserve your matches. Each playthrough feels like a new challenge, and that replayability is what gives The Long Dark its long-lasting value. And then there's Wintermute, the game's story mode, which adds even even more depth to the experience. While survival mode is all about seeing how long you can last, Wintermute gives you a more structured narrative to follow. You play as a pilot stranded in the wilderness after a plane crash, and as you progress, you start uncovering the mysteries of this world. It's a slower paced story, but the atmosphere and tension are what drive it forward. The episodic structure gives you plenty to sink your teeth into, and the narrative weaves nicely into the survival mechanics, making it feel like you're living out a true survival drama. For anyone looking for a game that doesn't just give you content, but truly immerses you in an experience that can last for dozens or even hundreds of hours, The Long Dark is a must-play. It's a masterclass in atmospheric storytelling, tension, and open-ended gameplay. Every playthrough feels fresh, every choice matters, and the sense of accomplishment you get from surviving just one more day in the wilderness is unlike anything else. If you want a game with insane playtime value, The Long Dark is one of the best out there. It's you versus nature, and it's one of the most rewarding and challenging experiences you'll ever play. Outer Wilds. Outer Wilds is one of those games that's hard to describe without spoiling its magic, but trust me when I say this, the amount of value you get from exploring its universe is absolutely mind-blowing. On the surface, it's a game about space exploration, but it's so much more than that. It's about discovery, curiosity, and the joy of figuring things out on your own. If you're the type of player who loves unraveling mysteries and uncovering secrets at your own pace, Outer Wilds is a game that'll keep you busy for hours, probably even days or weeks, depending on how deep you dive. The premise is simple. You're an astronaut exploring a tiny solar system, but here's the twist after 22 minutes. The sun goes supernova and everything resets. You wake up at the start of the loop with all your knowledge intact, but everything else is back to square one. It's a brilliant mechanic that turns exploration into a puzzle. You're not just flying around aimlessly, you're piecing together information, trying to solve the mysteries of this ancient civilization and figure out what's causing the loop. What makes Outer Wilds so special is how it encourages pure exploration. There's no combat, no grinding for levels or upgrades, just you, your spaceship, and your curiosity. The solar system is packed with planets, moons, and space stations, each with its own unique environment and mysteries to uncover. One planet might have a black hole at its center, while another is being slowly buried in sand. Every celestial body has something to offer, and the game rewards you for poking around and asking what's over there. And let me tell you, the sense of discovery in Outer Wilds is unparalleled. There's no quest log or objective marker telling you where to go next. You have to follow your instincts, read the clues, and figure things out on your own. That's what gives the game such insane playtime value. You could spend hours just exploring one planet, only to realize that a small detail you missed leads to a whole new area or unlocks a bigger piece of the puzzle. Every time you think you've hit a dead end, the game surprises you with something new. One of the most interesting aspects of Outer Wilds is the time loop mechanic. You're constantly racing against the clock, but in a way that feels empowering rather than stressful. You can use each loop to explore a little more, gather more information, and then come back with a new plan. The 22-minute limit adds a sense of urgency, but also makes each discovery feel even more significant. Every loop feels like progress, even if you don't find exactly what you're looking for. It's all about building your knowledge and connecting the dots. The puzzles in Outer Wilds aren't traditional in the sense that you're pushing blocks or solving riddles. Instead, they're based on logic, observation, and understanding the rules of the universe. The more you explore, the more you learn how things work, and the more equipped you are to solve the overarching mystery. It's a slow burn, but the payoff is incredibly satisfying. Visually, the game's art style is simple but beautiful. The solar system feels alive, with planets rotating, crumbling, and evolving in real time as the loop progresses. You can land anywhere, explore caves, climb mountains, or just float in space watching the stars. The music is another highlight. It's soft and atmospheric, adding to the game's sense of wonder and solitude. It's the kind of soundtrack that sticks with you, even when you're not playing. With dozens of secrets, hidden locations, and complex puzzles spread across multiple planets, Outer Wilds is a game that rewards patience and curiosity like no other. The more time you put into it, the more you get out of it. Even after you finish the game, there's still so much to see and understand. Every playthrough feels different, and every loop adds a new layer to the mystery. For a game that might seem small at first, Outer Wilds offers a massive amount of playtime value. It's one of those rare games where the more you explore, the more you're rewarded, and each discovery feels like a genuine achievement. If you're looking for a game that lets you lose yourself in exploration and mystery, this is it. Vampyr. If you're looking for a game that offers a unique mix of action, narrative depth, and moral choices that actually matter, Vampyr is one of the best AA games out there. Developed by Dontnod, the team behind Life is Strange, this game puts you in the shoes of Dr. Jonathan Reed, a newly turned vampire in the midst of a Spanish flu outbreak in 1918 London. The game's premise alone is enough to hook you, but it's the insane amount of depth that really makes it shine, giving you dozens of hours of gameplay that feels meaningful and impactful from start to finish. At its core, Vampyr is about choices. As a vampire, you have a thirst for blood, but here's the twist: you're also a doctor. Jonathan is torn between his oath to save lives and his newfound vampiric urges, and that tension drives every aspect of the game. You're constantly making decisions that will affect not only the story but the entire world around you. It's a classic do you play as a saint or a sinner scenario, but Vampyr takes it further by showing you the real consequences of your actions. What's brilliant about Vampyr is that every NPC in the game is part of a living, breathing ecosystem. Each character has a backstory, relationships, and their own role in the city's districts. If you choose to feed on someone to gain strength, it doesn't just give you a temporary power boost, it affects the entire district. That person's death has rippling consequences, and if you feed on too many people, the district could fall into chaos, leading to more enemies, worse conditions, and even locked off quests. It's not just a game about leveling up, it's about balancing your power with the well-being of the city around you, which gives Vampyr some serious replayability.
Who are you? Watch it! It's a killer! What do you want?
Speaking of combat, it's a mix of melee, ranged attacks, and vampiric abilities that make Jonathan feel like a real predator. The combat is more strategic than it first appears. You can dash across the battlefield, use blood to heal, or even mesmerize enemies to control the flow of battle. It's not overly complex, but it gets more challenging as you face tougher enemies, especially if you've been holding back on feeding to maintain your humanity. The tension between staying weak but morally sound or growing stronger by feeding on innocence makes every battle feel like it carries extra weight. But Vampyr isn't just about combat and moral choices, it's also got a huge focus on investigation and dialogue. As a doctor, you'll spend time diagnosing illnesses, gathering clues, and piecing together the mysteries surrounding London's vampire infestation. The dialogue system is deep, with plenty of opportunities to dig into characters' backstories, unlock hidden information, and even influence their fates. And if you choose to feed on someone, you can only do so after getting to know them well enough to raise their blood quality, making every kill feel like a betrayal on a deeply personal level. For a game that doesn't carry the same budget as your typical AAA blockbuster, Vampyr delivers an insane amount of content and value. The branching storylines, the deep moral choices, and the rich, atmospheric world make it a game you'll want to replay just to see how different decisions affect the outcome. It's an ambitious title that punches way above its weight, and for anyone who loves narrative-driven experiences, it's a must play.
Could you stand a little taller, just a tad?
GreedFall. GreedFall is one of those AA gems that proves you don't need a blockbuster budget to create an RPG packed with depth, exploration, and meaningful choices. Developed by Spiders, it's a game that blends classic RPG mechanics with a rich, colonial-inspired fantasy world, and it delivers an impressive amount of playtime value. If you're into games where your choices matter, and you love diving into a world full of political intrigue, magic, and exploration, GreedFall will keep you hooked for hours on end. The game is set on the mysterious island of Tirfredi, a land filled with strange creatures, ancient magic, and warring factions. You play as Di Sardet, a diplomat tasked with navigating this new world and its many dangers. The story is a blend of political drama and personal discovery, with a heavy focus on the relationships you build with various factions, each of which has its own motives, culture, and history. One of GreedFall's biggest strengths is how it allows you to shape the story through your choices, whether that's through diplomacy, combat, or manipulation. And trust me, the choices in GreedFall are more than just window dressing. The game gives you real agency over how events unfold. You can align yourself with different factions, broker peace, or ignite conflict, and every decision has long-reaching consequences. The best part? There's no clear-cut right or wrong path. Every faction has its own perspective, and it's up to you to decide where your loyalties lie. This makes the game incredibly replayable, as different choices lead to entirely new outcomes, quests, and alliances. But it's not just about the story. GreedFall also nails the RPG mechanics. Whether you want to focus on magic, firearms, or good old-fashioned swordplay, the game gives you plenty of freedom to build your character how you want. The skill tree is diverse, allowing you to specialize in combat, diplomacy, crafting, and more, and the game encourages experimentation, so you're never locked into one playstyle. I found myself constantly tweaking my abilities to suit different situations, which made each encounter feel fresh and exciting. The combat itself is fluid and tactical. You can pause the action to plan out your moves, making battles feel more strategic than the typical hack and slash affair. And if you're a fan of customization, GreedFall has plenty to offer in terms of gear and weapon upgrades. Crafting and upgrading your equipment isn't just an afterthought, it plays a key role in how you approach combat and exploration.
To my help. To the others.
The game's crafting system is deep enough to keep you invested, but not so complex that it becomes overwhelming. The world of Tearfredy is also a standout. It's a mix of untamed wilderness and colonial settlements, and the island feels alive with its own history and culture. The environments are stunning, from dense forests and coastal cliffs to bustling cities with colonial architecture. Each area feels distinct, and the world is packed with side quests, hidden secrets, and lore that flesh out the game's rich narrative. Exploring the island is rewarding not just for the loot and gear, but for the way it helps you piece together the bigger picture of what's really happening on Tearfredy. With a solid 40 to 50 hours of gameplay on a single run, and even more if you take your time exploring every corner of Tearfredy, GreedFall delivers an insane amount of value for a AA game. It's a must-play for anyone who loves rich, choice-driven RPGs with deep world building and meaningful consequences. Kingdom Come Deliverance. Kingdom Come Deliverance isn't just your typical open-world RPG, it's a medieval experience that goes all in on realism and historical accuracy, offering a unique kind of playtime value that you won't find in many other games. Developed by Warhorse Studios, this game drops you into the heart of 15th century Bohemia, a time of political upheaval, warfare, and personal drama. What sets Kingdom Come apart from other RPGs is its commitment to authenticity. There's no magic, no dragons, just cold, hard reality, and it's that focus on realism that makes it such an insanely rich and rewarding game. You play as Henry, the son of a blacksmith who's thrown into a world of chaos when his village is attacked and his family is killed. It's a classic revenge tale, but what makes Henry's story so compelling is how human he is. He's not a chosen one or a master swordsman, he's just a guy trying to survive in a brutal world, and you feel every bit of his struggle as he learns how to fight, read, and navigate the complex social dynamics of medieval life. The game doesn't give you shortcuts, you have to earn every skill, and that grind makes the journey all the more satisfying. One of the best aspects of Kingdom Come is how it handles realism in gameplay. This isn't a game where you can charge into battle and hack away at enemies with ease. Combat is tactical, difficult, and based on real historical techniques. You'll need to master your timing, angles of attack, and defense if you want to survive. Swordplay in this game is an art form you can't just button mash your way to victory. It's a slow, methodical system that takes time to learn, but once you get the hang of it, it's incredibly rewarding. Every duel feels tense, and the sense of accomplishment after a tough fight is hard to beat. But it's not just the combat that's realistic, everything in Kingdom Come is rooted in history. The world building is top-notch, with painstaking attention to detail in everything from the architecture and clothing to the social structure and political landscape of 15th century Bohemia. The game takes its historical setting seriously, and that level of detail is what gives it such rich playtime value. You're not just playing a game, you're living in a medieval world. Every village feels real, every castle has a story, and every character you meet has their own role in the larger world. Speaking of characters, the dialogue and quest system in Kingdom Come is another standout. Your choices and conversation matter, and the game takes into account things like your reputation, appearance, and speech skills when determining how people respond to you. If you're dirty and disheveled, don't expect nobles to take you seriously. If you've built a reputation as a liar, people won't trust you. It's a refreshing system that adds depth to every interaction and makes you think carefully about how you present yourself. The quests in Kingdom Come are far from the typical fetch and kill variety. They're intricate, often with multiple solutions depending on your approach. Some quests are morally gray, forcing you to make tough decisions that have real consequences in the world. For example, you might be tasked with helping a village deal with a bandit problem, but how you handle the situation, whether through diplomacy, brute force, or even sabotage, can change the outcome of the quest and your standing with the local community. And let's talk about the survival mechanics. In Kingdom Come, you have to eat, sleep, and take care of your gear. If you don't eat, you'll starve. If you don't sleep, your performance in combat will suffer. Weapons and armor degrade over time, so you'll need to repair and maintain your equipment regularly. It adds a layer of immersion that makes every aspect of the game feel connected. You're not just role-playing a character, you're living as Henry, experiencing the hardships and challenges of medieval life firsthand. The world map itself is massive and beautifully designed. Bohemia is filled with forests, villages, and castles, all meticulously crafted to reflect the period's historical accuracy. Every location feels lived in, from bustling towns to quiet rural areas. And because the game doesn't overwhelm you with fast travel or magic portals, you'll find yourself exploring the landscape naturally, uncovering hidden secrets and side quests as you go. It's the kind of open world that rewards patience and curiosity, making it perfect for players who love getting lost in a detailed, immersive environment. One of the game's hidden strengths is its historical education. You're constantly learning about the time period through your interactions, from how the social hierarchy worked to the importance of religion and warfare in medieval life. The game isn't afraid to dive deep into the politics and culture of the time, and it does so in a way that's engaging and informative without ever feeling like a history lesson. You learn by living in this world, and that's what makes it so unique. Of course, the game isn't without its challenges. The difficulty curve can be steep, especially at the beginning. Henry starts out as a complete novice in combat, and the game doesn't hold your hand. You'll die probably a lot. But that's part of the game's charm. It forces you to think, to improve, and to adapt, just like Henry himself. And as you progress, you feel a real sense of growth and accomplishment.
The reward you've earned.
I'm Nara.
Chorus. If you're craving fast-paced base combat mixed with a surprisingly deep narrative, Chorus is one of those AA gems that delivers way more than you'd expect. At first glance, it might seem like a straightforward space shooter, but once you dive in, you quickly realize there's so much more beneath the surface. Whether you're a fan of dogfights, epic space battles, or narrative-driven games, Chorus offers an insane amount of value for its playtime, with a blend of action-packed gameplay and a story that keeps you hooked. You play as Nara, an ace pilot haunted by her past. She's on the run from a cult known as the Circle, an organization she was once part of before turning against them. What really sets Chorus apart is Nara's complex character. She's not just a soldier, she's dealing with the psychological weight of her past actions, and that internal conflict plays out throughout the story. It's rare to see this level of character development in a space combat game, and it gives Chorus a narrative depth that pulls you in from the start. But the real star of Chorus is Forsaken, your sentient starfighter. The bond between Nara and Forsaken is at the heart of the game, and their relationship grows as the story unfolds.
Nice shooting.
Forsaken isn't just a tool of destruction, he's a character with his own personality, and the dynamic between him and Nara adds an emotional layer to the gameplay that's honestly refreshing for the genre. It's not just about blowing up enemy ships, though there's plenty of that. It's about two outcasts finding redemption in a galaxy that's trying to tear them apart. And speaking of blowing up enemy ships, the space combat in Chorus is top-notch.
An incredible sight. They built her big.
The controls are smooth and intuitive, making it easy to pull off high-speed maneuvers and dodge incoming fire while lining up the perfect shot. Combat feels fast, fluid, and tactical with a satisfying mix of dogfights, large-scale battles, and more intimate skirmishes. One of the most unique aspects is Nara's ability to pull off special moves like drifting, which allows you to turn on a dime and quickly reposition yourself in battle. It adds a level of strategy that makes every fight feel dynamic and engaging. The abilities and powers you gain throughout the game add another layer of complexity. As Nara, you have access to unique powers known as rights, which let you manipulate the battlefield in creative ways. You can use them to teleport behind enemies, unleash devastating energy blasts, or even control enemy ships. These abilities make you feel like a true force of destruction, and they add a ton of replayability to the game. How you use these powers can dramatically change your approach to combat, making each battle feel fresh even after hours of gameplay. The world design in Chorus is another standout feature. The game is set in an open-world galaxy with multiple systems to explore. Each location feels distinct, from the industrial wastelands to the haunting beauty of ancient ruins floating in space. The visuals are stunning, with gorgeous nebulae, asteroid fields, and space stations that make you want to stop and take it all in even while you're in the middle of a fight. The open world structure gives you the freedom to take on side missions, explore hidden areas, and engage in optional battles, which adds a ton of content outside the main storyline. One of the reasons Chorus offers so much playtime value is the variety in its missions. While the core gameplay revolves around space combat, the missions themselves are diverse and engaging. You'll be tasked with everything from massive fleet battles to hunting down lone targets to stealth missions where you have to avoid detection. The game keeps things fresh by constantly mixing up the objectives so it never feels repetitive. And because the galaxy is open for you to explore, you can take on missions in any order you like, adding to the feeling of freedom and replayability. The story is another strong point. It's more than just a backdrop for the action. There's a genuine sense of urgency and emotion in Nara's quest for redemption. The narrative explores themes of guilt, atonement, and the struggle to break free from one's past, which gives the game a lot more depth than you'd typically expect from a space combat title. The voice acting and writing are solid, and the cutscenes are cinematic, drawing you into the story without pulling you away from the action for too long. One of the most satisfying aspects of Chorus is the progression system. As you complete missions and take down enemies, you'll earn upgrades for Forsaken, making your ship faster, stronger, and more versatile in combat. Whether you're upgrading weapons, shields, or your right abilities, there's always a sense of progression that keeps you coming back for more. And because the combat is so fast-paced and fun, leveling up feels like a natural part of the game rather than a grind. For a game that flies under the radar compared to bigger space combat titles, Chorus delivers an insane amount of content and quality. The mix of intense dogfights, a compelling story, and a world that feels alive with possibilities makes it one of the best AA games out there in terms of playtime value. Whether you're in it for the combat or the narrative or both, Chorus offers an experience that's well worth sinking your time into.
Rest in peace.
Thanks. It wasn't much.
Miss Peppermint, you're
Hi-Fi Rush. Hi-Fi Rush is the kind of game that comes out of nowhere and surprises everyone with just how good it is. It takes the concept of rhythm action games and fuses it with fast-paced combat, colorful visuals, and a killer soundtrack to create an experience that's not just fun to play, but insanely replayable. If you're looking for a game that offers hours of pure adrenaline-fueled fun while giving you plenty of incentive to keep coming back for more, Hi-Fi Rush is exactly that. The first thing that'll grab your attention is the game's visual style. It's got this vibrant, cel-shaded look that feels like you're playing an interactive comic book or animated series. Every level, every enemy, every punch you throw has this explosive, energetic feel that keeps your eyes glued to the screen. The animations are incredibly smooth, making the whole experience feel like a seamless dance between combat and rhythm. And honestly, it's hard not to fall in love with the art direction alone. It's got this infectious sense of fun that's hard to resist. The game follows Chai, a wannabe rock star who finds himself equipped with a robotic arm and synced to the rhythm of the world around him. And that's where the magic of Hi-Fi Rush really comes in. The entire game moves to the beat of the music. Everything from your attacks to enemy movements happens in time with the soundtrack, and if you can match your combos and dodges to the beat, you're rewarded with more powerful attacks and higher scores. It's a game that's as much about feeling the rhythm as it is about mastering the combat, and it's a unique twist that makes the gameplay feel incredibly satisfying. The combat itself is slick and fast-paced, combining traditional action mechanics with rhythm-based elements. You've got your standard light and heavy attacks, dodges, and special abilities, but the key to success is timing everything to the beat. And the better your timing, the more devastating your combos, and it feels so good when you nail it. The game strikes a perfect balance between being accessible for newcomers while also offering a ton of depth for players who want to master the rhythm-based combat system. As you progress, you'll unlock more abilities and moves, giving you even more ways to chain together attacks and create some truly epic moments. But it's not just about fighting. Hi-Fi Rush also has a ton of platforming and exploration elements. You'll be bouncing around colorful environments, solving puzzles, and collecting items, all while staying in sync with the beat. The levels are filled with secrets, hidden areas, and collectibles that encourage you to explore every corner, and that gives the game a lot of replayability. Going back to levels to perfect your combos, find all the collectibles, or just beat your previous high score is incredibly addictive. One of the game's strongest aspects is its soundtrack. It's packed with a mix of licensed tracks and original music, all of which are perfectly synced to the action. Whether you're in the middle of a heated boss fight or exploring a new area, the music is always driving the rhythm, and it's hard not to get swept up in it. The soundtrack plays such a huge role in the overall experience that you'll find yourself tapping your foot or nodding your head to the beat without even realizing it. And because the music is so integral to the gameplay, it never feels like background noise. It's a core part of what makes Hi-Fi Rush such a blast to play. The boss fights are another highlight, with each one offering a unique challenge that tests your rhythm, combat skills, and ability to adapt. Each boss has its own set of moves and patterns that are synced to the music, so you'll need to stay on your toes and time your attacks perfectly if you want to come out on top. These fights are visually spectacular and have a real sense of rhythm-based choreography that makes them some of the most memorable moments in the game. Hi-Fi Rush also shines in its sense of humor and overall vibe. Chai is a likable protagonist with a goofy charm, and the game doesn't take itself too seriously. The dialogue is snappy, and there are plenty of funny moments that break up the action. It's got that Saturday morning cartoon feel, where everything is just a little over the top in the best possible way. As for replayability, this game delivers in spades. Not only are you encouraged to go back and replay levels to improve your performance and score, but the game also has a ton of unlockables, including new moves, outfits, and upgrades for Chai. There are also difficulty settings that ramp up the challenge for players who want to test their skills even further, making it a game that's easy to pick up but hard to master. For a game that seems like it would be a simple rhythm-action hybrid, Hi-Fi Rush offers an incredible amount of depth and value. Between its engaging combat system, eye-popping visuals, and a soundtrack that'll have you hooked from the first beat, it's a game that'll keep you coming back for more. Whether you're aiming for high scores, mastering the rhythm combat, or just soaking in the fun, Hi-Fi Rush is one of the best AA games out there for pure playtime value. Evil West. Evil West is one of those games that doesn't try to reinvent the wheel, but instead doubles down on what makes gaming fun: brutal, over-the-top combat, wild boss fights, and a world dripping with atmosphere. It's a game that knows exactly what it is and delivers on its promise of chaotic, high-energy action set in a dark, supernatural version of the Wild West. If you're into fast-paced combat with plenty of variety and an adventure that offers hours of replayability, Evil West is the kind of AA gem that'll keep you hooked. You step into the boots of Jesse Rentier, a vampire hunter in a reimagined Wild West where bloodthirsty creatures are more than just campfire tales that are a real threat, and it's your job to wipe them out. The game doesn't waste any time getting you into the action, throwing you into a world filled with supernatural horrors and an arsenal of weapons designed to make you feel like an unstoppable force. Evil West embraces its B-movie vibes with a campy, pulpy story that doesn't take itself too seriously, but the fun is in the gameplay, not the plot. The real star of Evil West is its combat system. It's fast, fluid, and brutally satisfying. Jesse is equipped with an impressive arsenal, including a variety of guns, gauntlets, and melee weapons that let you chain together devastating combos. The game encourages you to mix up your attacks, combining close quarters combat with ranged shooting and some electrifying special abilities. 1 minute, you're blowing apart enemies with a shotgun, and the next you're punching them into the ground with a lightning-charged gauntlet. The combat feels weighty and responsive, giving you that satisfying feedback with every hit. One of the standout features of the game is how well it handles enemy variety. You'll face everything from vampire minions and grotesque mutants to massive bosses that fill the screen. Each enemy type has its own weaknesses and attack patterns, so you're constantly switching up your strategy, especially as the game ramps up in difficulty. The boss fights are a particular highlight, offering up some truly epic encounters that test your reflexes, timing, and creativity in using your arsenal. The weapons and upgrades in Evil West also give the game a ton of replay value. As you progress, you'll unlock new weapons and abilities, and the upgrade system allows you to customize your playstyle. Whether you want to focus on brutal melee combat, ranged attacks, or a balanced mix of both, the game gives you the freedom to experiment with different builds. The combat evolves as you unlock more abilities, and just when you think you've seen everything the game has to offer, it throws a new weapon or power into the mix to keep things fresh. The story might not be the game's strongest point, but it serves its purpose, delivering a straightforward narrative that lets the action take center stage. You're not here for deep character development or intricate storytelling, you're here to slay monsters in the most stylish and explosive ways possible. That said, the world building is surprisingly rich, with plenty of lore scattered throughout the game for those who want to dive deeper into the Rentier Institute's history and the supernatural threats they face. For a game that feels like a throwback to classic action titles, Evil West packs a ton of content. The campaign itself offers a solid length, but the real value comes from replaying missions to perfect your combat skills, trying out different builds, and hunting for hidden upgrades and lore. The mix of high-octane combat, variety of enemies, and customization options make each playthrough feel unique, especially if you crank up the difficulty or jump into co-op. Evil West might not be the most groundbreaking game out there, but what it does really well. It's a love letter to classic action games with modern polish and enough variety to keep you hooked for hours. Whether you're in it for the bombastic combat, the co-op chaos, or just a fun romp through a supernatural Wild West, Evil West offers some serious playtime value for anyone looking to let loose and slay some monsters. Journey is one of those rare games that transcends its simplicity to offer an experience that sticks with you long after the credits roll. At first glance, it might seem too minimalist to offer much playtime value, but don't let its brief runtime fool you. Journey is one of the most replayable and emotionally engaging games you'll ever experience. It's not about how many hours you spend playing, but how every time you dive back in, the game feels different, offering something new and meaningful each time. You play as a rogue traveler in a vast desert, making your way toward a distant mountain peak. There's no dialogue, no overt story, it's all about the journey. What's incredible about Journey is how it taps into universal emotions without saying a word. You're guided by your curiosity, the environment, and an ever-changing sense of discovery. Every time you play, it's a different experience, whether you're playing solo or encountering another player online. One of the key reasons Journey offers such replayability is the way it handles multiplayer. You can be paired with other travelers randomly, but there's no way to communicate with them except through a series of chirps and gestures. This creates a unique sense of connection with strangers. Sometimes you'll help each other solve puzzles or navigate the world, other times you'll simply explore side by side. There's something profoundly moving about the silent companionship the game fosters, and each playthrough feels distinct depending on who you meet or if you go it alone. The art direction in Journey is nothing short of stunning. The world is simple, yet breathtakingly beautiful, with vast desert landscapes, ancient ruins, and snow-covered peaks that feel alive with mystery. The minimalist design helps create a sense of wonder and awe as you explore, and the visual storytelling is masterfully done. Every area you pass through is rich with symbolism, and the more you play, the more you begin to interpret the game's world in new ways. The gameplay itself is simple but perfectly executed. You glide, jump, and float through the world, using the game's intuitive mechanics to navigate the environment and solve light puzzles. The real beauty of Journey is how effortlessly it pulls you in without the need for complex systems. It's about flow, about feeling the movement of your character and getting lost in the world. Every time you play, you're drawn back into that flow, and it's incredibly satisfying. For those looking to dig deeper into the game's secrets and lore, there's a lot of replayability hidden in its minimalist approach. Each playthrough reveals new symbols, hidden pathways, and subtle changes in the environment that add layers to the game's narrative. While the game doesn't give you a clear story, it invites you to interpret its world in your own way, and that sense of discovery keeps pulling you back in. In terms of playtime value, Journey may not be the longest game on this list, but it's one of the most impactful. Its emotional depth, combined with its stunning visuals and dynamic multiplayer, makes it a game you'll want to revisit time and time again. Whether you're chasing the thrill of gliding across the sand dunes, seeking out hidden areas you missed the first time, or simply enjoying the meditative calm the game brings, Journey always feels fresh and rewarding on repeat playthroughs. Ultimately, Journey isn't just a game, it's an experience. One that evolves with every playthrough, offering a sense of wonder, connection, and discovery that keeps players coming back. It's a game you can complete in a few hours, but its emotional impact and replayability make it one of the most enduring experiences you'll find.